There's actually been a lot of ongoing mystery and suspicion and speculation surrounding several types of Easter eggs that were sprinkled in Halo 2 Anniversary, which released alongside the Halo Master Chief Collection all the way back over 7 years ago in 2014. In the Halo 2 Anniversary map Stonetown, there's various graffiti now added to the rock walls and other surfaces that way back in the original Halo 2 days were mostly pretty barren. So of course, with it being a remake of Zanzibar, fans were quick to take a close look at any little interesting graffiti or sign that can appear on this map, because Halo 2 Zanzibar was a multiplayer map very well known for having a ton of Easter eggs sprinkled throughout the level, especially a lot of seasonal type Easter eggs that would only appear at certain times of the year. So of course, with any remake of Zanzibar, especially in a special anniversary version of the game, fans would be looking very closely. And yes, there were a ton of little nods and Easter eggs, specifically in the graffiti found in Halo 2 Anniversary's Stonetown. The interesting thing though is that to this day, a lot of the graffiti is still rather ambiguous as to what it actually means or what it could be referencing or alluding to, and fans have been left for years trying to speculate and figure out what each piece of graffiti means. And finally, just literally today, we actually got explicit answers from a former Bungie employee of all people, revealing what one of these graffiti signs actually mean well over 7 years after Halo 2 Anniversary's release. Now, for example, since Halo 2 Anniversary's release, fans like Chris from Halopedia have spent time archiving all of the different art pieces found on Stonetown just to have them all together in one place so that fans could take a closer look and study them and try to dissect what each graffiti piece means. Some of them are pretty obvious and just fun little nods, like my biggest fan, which is likely a reference to the giant fan in the middle of this map, if you didn't put that one together. There's some fun ones like red and blue, and there's some more subtle ones like Ling Ling, the weird dog thing, which dates all the way back to Halo 2's Zanzibar, which was one of those timed Easter eggs. And at the very least, now we have one more of these graffiti pieces finally having the meaning of it revealed, which comes from former Bungie developer Paul Russell, who was one of the original environmental artists at Bungie way back in the earliest days. Allegedly, he was the guy who came up with the name Halo for the franchise. Nonetheless, if you've been following recent Halo news or just conversations online, Paul Russell's actually been really active on his Twitter account and recently shared an experience where he talked about interviewing for a job at 343 Industries to continue work on Halo. 343 chose not to hire him, and in general, this ended up being a tweet that kind of blew up in the Halo community. But the real interesting thing here is that Paul Russell kind of just opened up the door for conversation about the Halo franchise and his experiences in the industry, and communicated with a ton of different fans on Twitter in kind of like a very casual, multiple day ask me anything type thing that just kind of happened on Twitter. Paul talked about a bunch of really interesting things about how a lot of members at Bungie didn't want to make Halo 2 or any other Halo games, and how there were other projects that Bungie had been working on that they had to scrap in favor of working on Halo 2 and whatnot. And this whole conversation somehow ended up us getting the answer to what this graffiti piece means, which I'll just say it now so I'm not dragging it on. It says Spaz, which was the name of Paul Russell's dog. Yeah, it's that simple. But the way that we've discovered this and the whole story behind it is what I think is incredibly interesting. It started with this long Twitter conversation where one user was talking about what things would have looked like had a different studio like Certain Affinity took over Halo instead of 343 Industries, which some of you may know that Paul Russell, after working at Bungie, did end up joining Certain Affinity and continued working on Halo well into the 343 era. But Paul commented on this idea of what things would have looked like had Certain Affinity taken over, saying that he couldn't give an opinion because he never played any of the games outside of playtests at work, citing motion sickness and that he's too tied to the development emotionally, so preferred to watch playthroughs occasionally, cutscenes, and just appreciate the art of Halo. And then Paul Russell shared this little anecdotal story that ended up getting us to our Spaz graffiti story, where he shared that when CE came out, he started playing the first level with his wife, and their new puppy was just chilling, and then suddenly his screen paused with a warning to plug in a controller, and he realized that his new puppy Spaz had chewed the cord in half, and that was the last time he played Halo at home. Then Halo VFX, a friend of the channel and someone who also appreciates good doggo stories on the internet, responded to this little story asking if he was the goodest doggo in all of the Halo land, where Paul Russell, also obviously appreciating some doggo appreciation, shared that there's an Easter egg of him in one of the maps for Halo Anniversary, pointing to either Stonetown or Breakneck, which fortunately enough, Halo VFX had been following this Twitter story for the doggo side of things, because it was a long Twitter thread that honestly would have gone under many people's radar, and VFX fortunately tagged us in the tweet so that we could be aware that, hey, there's this Easter egg that nobody knew the meaning of until literally right now. Paul decided to share a little bit more, giving a little more background to who Spaz the dog was, because it's more than just some random dog that was appreciated. This dog was pretty much a member and founding father of Halo in some form or another. Paul Russell said it would read to most people as random graffiti. This is the first time I've mentioned Spaz publicly, but he was a legend at Bungie and certain affinity. He used to accompany me to game dev beer nights and was loved by all. He also included this amazing picture. So at this point we had wholesome Halo Easter eggs and doggos, so I of course inserted myself into the Twitter conversation asking if there was any other cool Easter eggs that either no one knows about or just other cool dog related stories. And Paul Russell actually shared that at the 2002 Bungie Summer Pentathlon in Juanita, Paul and his team were losing at tug of war, and Spaz the dog just came running in, clamped down on the rope, and became a decisive player that won the day for them. So it's just a cool little story that not a lot of people actually knew about. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at Paul Russell's public LinkedIn page, he stayed with certain affinity for about 1 year and 1 month, leaving before MCC would release, meaning that it is possible that someone else put the asset into Halo 2 Anniversary that Paul Russell had already designed for it, or worked with someone to design for. And after leaving certain affinity, he went ahead and started his own design company called Spaz Design, likely named after the good boy that we've been talking about for this entire video. I don't know, we always think it's really interesting when something that's existed right in front of the Halo community for multiple years finally gets revealed. If it's just some interesting little story or it has an interesting origin to it, it's something that we think's really interesting, more interesting than arguing over Twitter with where Halo went wrong and what could have been done differently. I mean, sure, we can argue about all those things all day long, but let's also appreciate some of the other interesting stories that pop up from time to time like this, because now we know of a new founding Halo member that maybe we didn't know about beforehand, and it's just one little bigger piece of the larger Halo history puzzle where, in a way, Spaz gets to live on through his own historic significance. Hey, if you liked this video, it's a little bit of a different video than what we normally do. It's a little shorter, just a quick little interesting topic we thought was fun. Let us know in the comments so we know we can also do short videos from time to time besides our long journeys that we sometimes go on. You can also subscribe if you're new here. We cover all things Halo and sometimes other games. That's it for today though. We'll see you guys next time with a brand new video.